What's up, MetaNerdz? This video is all about the vampires in the Star Wars universe, the Anzat species. These are a Force-sensitive, near-human race that hail from the world of Anzat, located at R7 in the Mid-Rim. In vampiric fashion, they had incredibly long lifespans, with a child being 11 to 12 years old, similar to humans, but that's kinda where it stops, as you were a young adult until you were 99 years old, adult from 100 to 649, and middle-aged from 650 to 799. And it wasn't impressive until you were in your thousands of years old, as many Anzat lived for many millennia. But instead of being towering and terrifying in their stature, they were actually quite short, at a max height of 1.7 meters, or 5.6 feet. Now this is shocking considering the extent of knowledge retained in the University of Coruscant, but no one has been able to study the body of a dead Anzat. Life scans show that they have no body heat, and there was no pulse to be detected. To this day, nobody understands how their circulatory system works, or what their internal anatomy looks like. What people have been able to deduce from seeing some Anzat captives is that they could die of starvation in only a couple days, but as long as they were well fed, it seems that they could live indefinitely. The only thing that caused an Anzat to die was the fact that over the years, their thirst grew stronger and stronger, causing them to develop a sort of insanity that would lead to them making some sort of mistake that got them killed. To gain its valued life force from its victims, these two proboscises were coiled up in cheek pockets in their face, which made them almost indistinguishable from humans. Jedi that came across them were able to detect their method of luring their victim, a form of telepathic invasion that was similar to the mind trick. Instead of just drinking their blood, the Anzat would claim their dinner's mind, moving up close, increasing their dominance over them with each step, as the proboscises slowly extended out and worked their way up into the victim's orifices. Depending on the species, the point of entry might be different, but it all resulted in what was referred to as a soup, or the Sea of Memory. With these invading tentacles worked in, they secreted enzymes that broke down the eyes and brains into a sort of mucousy gel that would be sucked up through these same tentacles. The spiritual power of the victim could be sensed through this brain soup, and the Anzat claimed that what they called the presence of the victim, when it was absorbed, made their connection to the Force even stronger. And this is why they craved the mind of Jedi. They said that the Jedi's deep connection with the Force allowed them to strengthen their own Anzat form of mind control, but this would of course be a very difficult thing to pull off. Sadly, one has to expect that it was easier to sedate the minds of Force-sensitive children, whom the Anzat would be able to detect with their own Force sensitivity, and it's anyone's guess how many potential future Jedi were turned into soup. They considered the average sentient, non-Force-sensitive creatures to just be fast food, and to be satiated they would have to go through dozens of beings a day. Some believe that this would result in the creation of a new Anzat, but this was just a myth, as there was no case of anyone turning, and interestingly, there are a few rare cases where someone survived an attack, presumably because the Anzat had to cut the liquefaction process short. This dependence on other species, and incredible lifespan gave the Anzat a very unique culture. Ancient myths told that the silent voices, bands of colorful displays, and the clouds on their homeworld's atmosphere were the remnants of their ancestors' souls. This is similar to the beliefs of many indigenous tribes from around the world, who believe that the Aurora Borealis contained spirits, and the Anzat had a naming practice that was similar to some Native American tribes. But instead of being named after an important animal, the parents didn't name their children, instead letting them pick their own name after seeing which type of prey they preferred. Because of the long lifespans, they didn't reproduce often, and although no details exist on this process, their near-human designation should make us believe that it was very similar to our own. And their cultural attitude towards art is also quite complex. Many species confuse their production of art, literature, and music as proof that they hold these things in high esteem, but the Anzat explained that there is no satisfaction in these pursuits. They are just interesting diversions, but when you can practice a craft for thousands of years, you see how fleeting the respect for that craft is when the shorter-lived races pass through fad after fad. Nothing was held higher than the hunt, and this art was the one that was revered and taught to their children. Other races liked to see them as scholarly people, but this was just due to the greater amount of time that they had to study the subject, and really carving a fine marble statue or writing a masterful epic was just fun, no more deep than playing a video game. And people often ignore that these supposed scholars were just as interested in the baser pleasures and even involved in criminal undertakings. Because they didn't reproduce often, there were not incredible numbers of them across the galaxy, but their impact was terrifying, so myths of these creatures were found on thousands of worlds, from the deep core to the outer rim. Because so many planets have ancient myths about these creatures, it is believed that the Anzati were one of the earliest species to develop a hyperdrive. Historians also believe that they taught the Sith species on Korriban how to drink the blood soup, a practice that would be kept alive for thousands of years, still being drunk by Darth Bane. And despite all warning, there was a Jedi Anzat named Kulfi Karko. Many thought that he would never be able to deny his instincts, and eventually he would succumb to the urge of the soup. This proved true, and he ended up falling to the dark side because of it. He was captured and kept alive in a stasis field for millennia on the prison world of Kifex. Over these many years, he strengthened his Anzat form of mind control and used it to call on other Anzat to free him. Around this same time, by now the year 30 BBY, Aayla Secura arrived at the prison, and Karko started to invade her mind. He got her to release him, and turned her to the dark side, enacting his vision of having her serve as his queen. The Anzat that responded to his call had been turned insane, now more like feral beasts, and this Anzat army tried to stop the Jedi from rescuing Secura. Quinlan Vos was able to fight his way back to the two fallen Jedi, and being her former master, Vos's connection was able to bring her back to the light. In the lightsaber battle that ensued, Karko was cut in two. Other prominent Anzat during the time of the Clone Wars were behind the assassination of Finis Valorum and Oppo Rancisis, while others helped to train the Morgokai warriors. Danik Jericho was an Anzat that frequented Tatooine as a perfect spot to gain soup from souls that would not be missed. When he sensed Obi-Wan's immense power in the Force, he was burning with hunger, and later when he was in Jabba's palace, he was drawn to the presence of the Carbonite Han Solo. When the Nerf herder was sentenced to death, he decided to just settle for Jabba's mind, and then he got word that the slug was killed on his yacht. Now completely frustrated, Jericho went mad at the palace and went on a ravenous feeding spree. So that's it for the Anzat species, and the only cool behind the scenes fact is that originally they were said to feed on a victim's luck, an interesting way to describe luck as an element of reality, and something that would make Jericho's attraction to Han Solo make a lot of sense, and would explain why he liked to hang out at gambling dens like Jabba's palace and cantinas. If you want to connect with us, help support this channel, or get your own copies of the reference material used to make this video, be sure to check out the links in the description. Special shout out to our supporters over on Patreon, but most important of all, remember, you only have one soup, make sure you protect it, and the Force will be with you, always.